His supporting characters and supporting cast are kind of what makes him Superman. That creates the whole world of Superman, and you really can't have Superman without those characters being around to work off of him.
When we started doing the show, you realize that, you know, not every story can be told with one guy.
Coming through!
Something going on I should know about?
Where have you been, Kent? On another planet?
Lois has traditionally in the comics been demeaning Clark for being very mild-mannered and timid, and yet she's always out pursuing Superman, either to find out his identity or else get him interested in her.
Nice S.
And that said, we didn't really want to do that version of Lois, even though that version does have a lot of charm of its own. So Lois had to become more of an equal for Clark.
The thinking behind their dynamic was to go back to the very first representation of Lois and Clark, which was they were competitors. They weren't necessarily buddy-buddy.
You want to keep up with me, you got to be quick. I'm no tour guide and I don't hold hands.
They were really more competitors than even friends. Lois viewed Clark as a rival. She didn't think much of him, but she did respect him as a reporter.
Lois is still basically the, the go-get-'em, girl reporter. She's just instantly, appealing, but at the same time, she's not really somebody you want to mess with.
Big train wreck 5 miles north. Someone was standing on the tracks, and right now I wish he was the guy who built the stupid elevator!
She's kind of bossy and kind of doesn't really give him the time of day. I think that's kind of a challenge to him.
If you got a minute, I'd like to show you my pictures.
Originally, the first design for Jimmy was the classic redhead guy with the bow tie, and really goofy looking. He needed to be more hip.
Jimmy Olsen is an interesting character. He's a lot of fun. He is the youthful identification. It was tough to kind of figure out a way to make him fresh, to make him feel hip, and yet still kind of that nerdy little kid that's following Lois and Clark around.
We wanted to make him less of the, gee, Mr. Kent type nerdy photographer. We made him very much a kid of contemporary times, someone who's not above stretching the truth a bit in order to, sneak in someplace, take some photographs, take some risks in order to get what he wanted.
He was just a little bit cooler, but I mean, it's Jimmy Olsen. I mean, how cool can you make Jimmy Olsen?
It's a very traditional take on Jimmy. He looks a little bit more modern. He's got the, the funky mullet and the baggy pants, but other than that, he's Jimmy Olsen. It's like you don't really have to reinvent those characters really from the ground up, because they're archetypes that have been around for 60-some-odd years, and there's a good reason they've been around for 60-some-odd years. They're good archetypes, they work.
Superman. Hey, I like it. Superman. It's catchy, sticks with you, the kind of name that looks great splashed across 3 columns. Make it 4.
Barry White, Clark Kent's boss, good guy. We always got the idea he was like a great ex-reporter, and someone, a champion of the little guy, someone who had not sold out to the big media moguls, and despite the temptations of the modern world, was still going to put out the last honest paper in Metropolis.
Perry's sort of a gruff guy. Sort of no-nonsense guy, but he had sort of a father figure to everybody, bring everybody together.
He does yell at everybody, but he doesn't come off as a tyrant. There's still some caring in him.
We're going to have to do it your way, Dan.
All right. Okay, move in.
Turpin and Maggie Sawyer were some characters introduced originally in the comic books and gradually became integrated into the Superman mythology. Superman doesn't really need cops around, but these two were kind of a nice mix. We had the cool, collected female officer who really knew her way around a gun and how to handle, advanced firepower, and Turpin, who he got the idea was like a cop from the streets who had worked himself up into the Special Crimes Unit.
You could have been in terrible danger.
That's why they call me Terrible Turpin.
He's a gruff cop who doesn't really think that Superman is necessary, that people can take care of themselves.
I want to bring Superman in on this officially.
You're kidding.
But when, the chips are down and Superman's in trouble, he saves him.
Dan Turpin was based on Jack Kirby and even was designed to sort of resemble him.
Bruce just wanted to turn him into Kirby, and we're all big Kirby fans, so, that was our homage to Jack.
Maggie Sawyer, tough, cool character, fun dealing with her, and again, sort of a nice contrast to what was going on.
She's the sort of opposite end of the spectrum to Turpin. She actually admires Superman to some degree, and she's a tough cop.
Get ready. Now.
Hamilton served a purpose early on as someone Superman could talk to about science in Metropolis. We always imagined that Metropolis was years ahead of every place else as far as technological breakthroughs, and we needed to give that a face. So Emil Hamilton served that role very well. He was somebody who, through his job at Star Labs, was coming up with more benevolent solutions toward making life better. So he became a confidant and a friend of Superman's as far as someone Superman could go to help work up a new suit if Superman had to go into space or extreme conditions, or he needed some shielding against kryptonite.
Superman, if you can alter the trajectory by 5 degrees.
Dr. Hamilton is a scientist that also helps Superman learn about his past. So the Star Labs represent that science aspect that he doesn't have on his own.
And because the show does have a real strong science fictional base to it, you really do need a character who can be Mr. Wizard, who can explain the science of it all.
Let me guess. Martha sewed it for you.
What?
By the way, Clark, how are the folks?
Lana Lang was a lot of fun in that we had taken her out of small town Smallville and turned her into a very cosmopolitan young woman. We gave her this skill in fashion design, and she actually left the farm and gone out and made something of herself. And also someone who, remembered Clark from the old days and remembered the fact that he liked root beer floats and things like that. There's something very comfortable in seeing the girl next door again.
I like powerful men.
Lana, this is no joke.
Obviously, if you pay attention to the pilot, she clearly has to know who he is. She's seen him do things that no person can do.
Lana likes Clark. She doesn't really care about Superman, and the fact that Clark is Superman doesn't faze her one bit. She knew him from the beginning, so she knows what kind of guy he is, what kind of morals he has. So she really likes him, and she likes him no matter what.
Lana is almost like Clark's surrogate sister. She's kind of the sister he never had, and so then ultimately when they hit the teenage years and the hormones started kicking in, probably he was looking at Lana and she was looking at him in a slightly different way. But at the same time, I think there's almost a more brotherly and sisterly bond between them rather than anything really romantic.
It doesn't matter where you were born or what you can do, you'll always be Clark Kent. Superman just helps out now and then.
The decision to keep Ma and Pa Kent alive in contemporary times in the comic books came from the John Byrne series. And I think he realized that they were an asset to the Superman mythos, and it allowed us to have Smallville in the back of our minds to return to.
We kind of use Ma and Pa Kent as a sounding board for Clark because they're the only two people he can talk to about the problems he has as Superman, or trying to juggle his Clark Kent life and his Superman life.
They brought out a very human part of him, and you need that with Superman.
They are such an important part of the Superman mythos just because even though he came from two really wonderful Kryptonian parents, they basically died when he was still an infant, so they really didn't have a chance to mold him as a human being.
Superman was lucky enough to land on Earth and be adopted by these people who are still alive, and he basically is the optimistic side of being a superhero. So he has a family that he can go to and bounce things off.
Thank God for the Kents. Thank God he was raised by two God-fearing, wonderful people in the heartland of America who instilled in him a real strong sense of right and wrong from an early age. So, they're as much responsible for Superman as Jor-El and Lara are. Jor-El and Lara, they gave him his genes, but, Jonathan and Martha, gave him his morality.
Get your tail in here. Perry's got an assignment for us.
He's only as good a hero as he's surrounded by other terrific supporting characters.
Like I said, Superman is all about his supporting characters. They help make him relatable. To these two people, he's their son. To Lois Lane, well, when he's Superman, he's somebody she secretly loves, and when he's Clark Kent, he's a rival, All these supporting characters serve to kind of show you a different side of Superman and make him more human.